is Saturday the 13th of August, and I'm going to crack on tonight with 3. Normally I do 2 and then have a night off, but tonight I'm going to do 3, simply because these are the last 3 of my Highland Scotch single malts for me to get through, and I didn't really want to do 2 and then have 1 and start my Canadian. I wanted to start the Canadian run afresh, so I'm going to do the final 3 tonight in one go, and hopefully it doesn't make me feel like rubbish in the morning, particularly as I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do a car boot sale. So it's a bit of a risk for me and my low tolerance for alcohol, but I'd rather do 3 and get Highland Scotch done and then start Canadian afresh rather than do a bit of a split. So this first one is Royal Lochnagar, and this was a miniature donated by Mr. X. Thank you very much. This is a slightly older bottling, so this is the standard Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old. And when I was working at the whisky shop, this is what the bottle looked like. And from what I gather, it had looked like that for donkey's years. Very, very traditional. I mean, it really does look old. But the standard Royal Lochnagar now looks like this, which I hope you'll agree, I believe definitely looks much improved, a lot more classier, but still maintains some kind of dignity. So the distillery, this is the second version of Lochnagar. The first Lochnagar wasn't too far away from where the distillery is now. Was originally built in 1826 by a guy called James Robertson. And in 1841, it burnt down under mysterious circumstances. And essentially, it was a case of there was still illicit distilling going around. And those illicit distillers didn't like the official distillers because they felt that they were being traitorous. So it was difficult to actually start a sort of legit official distillery, having got a license for it and paying your taxes and everything like that. For donkey's years beforehand, it had been illicit distilling, and you were fighting the taxman, and you were hiding in the forest and everything like that. And people were seen as essentially being selling out. So Robertson's distillery burnt down, and it was actually his second distillery that had burnt down. He had another one, I can't remember what the name of it was, Glen something, where within a couple of years of him opening that burnt down as well. So the new Lochnagar, which it was actually called that as well, was 4 years later in 1845 by a guy called John Beck, and this is where the distillery is. Now, this is actually sort of next to the grounds of Balmoral Castle, which is the Scottish home of the royal family. So at the time, we were in the reign of Queen Victoria, and in 1848, John Begg basically put a letter through the door of Balmoral Castle, not quite literally, but as near as damn it, wrote them a letter going, "I've got a distillery here, do you fancy coming in and having a look?" And pretty much the next day there was a knock at the door of the distillery, and it was Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. So apparently they spent the day there. John Begg apparently on the letter had said that you would have to come before 6 o'clock, because after 6 o'clock everything shuts down and you won't be able to see it in operation. This is to the Queen. This is to Queen Victoria, who was well known for her sense of humour. But he was like, no, can't come in after 6 because there's nothing to see. So they turned up, and apparently they were suitably impressed, and that year they were issued with a royal warrant. So this is why it is Royal Lochnagar and not Lochnagar, because they have a royal warrant. There is also Royal Brackler and Glenurry Royal as well, which is Glenurry Royal, because these are the 3 distilleries that have royal warrants. So that is why it's called Royal Lochnagar, but the distillery itself is technically, strictly speaking, the Lochnagar distillery. So in 1916 it was sold to John Dewar and Sons, the blending company. And John Dewar and Sons became part of DCL, who eventually became Diageo, and they are still owned by Diageo themselves. The classic malts that I did right at the start of the challenge, where there were the 6 classic malts that came in a pack of 6, In about 2004, 2005, Diageo expanded that classic malts range and included, it was like Clynelish was in there, Kalila was in there, Royal Lochnagar was there as well. So there is a distiller's edition. They did distiller's editions of the classic malts where it was like various cask finishes of, like Lagavulin was Pedro Jimenez sherry. There was a Fino sherry, I can't remember the other ones as well. And there are now distiller's editions of Royal Lochnagar and Kalila and all this lot. So it was closed temporarily during World War II simply because there wasn't that much barley going around because of rationing. They had a major refurbishment in 1963 and there was a rather large extension to it, and it's been ticking along. And now this is one of the more unusuals, particularly a distillery owned by Diageo, in that the majority of it is used as single malt. It is a key component of Johnny Walker Blue Label particularly. And it was also used as quite a key part of VAT 69 blend as well, which I have a sample of towards the challenge. But it's one of the distilleries where, and a lot of Diageo's distilleries, in fact, the next one that I'm going to have, is used predominantly for blends with some being used as single malt. This is the other way around, this is predominantly single malt. So you're looking for the 12-year-old, new bottling, but I think they've kept it consistent in terms of the recipe of it. You're looking at about 35 quid for this, and I do remember at the whisky shop, which was this bottling particular, it was that label, it was a little bit cheaper. It's probably about 25 to 30 quid, but it was very, very good value for money. It was one of those that if somebody came in and said, I've got about 25 quid to spend, that would be the go-to. It would be one of those, or Lot Lomond, or a few other bits and pieces. Old Pulteney was another one where it was like, oh, he likes Highland whiskies, right? 25 quid, Royal Lochnagar, fantastic. That sort of thing. It was our go-to easy sell for somebody that wanted something similar but different. So, nice classical, warm. It's a warm amber colour. That, whether it's had colouring added to it or not, don't know, don't care. Now it's 40%, but it's a bit spirity on the nose. It's a bit more of a burn than I was expecting. Now the fill level on this is good. This is obviously an older miniature, but the fill level on this was good. So I'm not particularly concerned that there's been anything lost to this, but there is a malty sherry feel to it, but it's a little bit more fiery than I was expecting on the nose. But on the palate, not spirity at all. Lovely and rich and warming. Smooth and malty. There's a slight orange peel to it as well. There is a definite orange marmalade character to this, with a lovely malt and toffee and caramel. Oh, I mean, this is a classic whiskey flavour. And it's kind of a flavour that suits that labelling. It's very kind of oldie worldy almost. It's how you would imagine a whiskey would taste as drunk by a member of royalty sat in a castle on a big chair with a roaring log fire in front of them. And this is exactly the rich, warming, soft, but still with a nice kind of character and depth to it, whiskey that they would be drinking after having feasted on a pig or something like that. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. It's not particularly outstanding. There's an oakiness to it, but it's a really good oakiness. It's an oakiness that supports the rest of the character of the whiskey. It's not woody or dry, but it's a deep oakiness that sort of fits in with that castle analogy of the wooden beams and warmth. It's not massively complex, although it does have a really good finish in terms of this orange marmalade warmth carries on warms your chest. Really good winter whiskey, this. Really, really good winter whiskey. Not like the Lochnagar that was a really good sort of spring/summer whiskey. This is a winter whiskey. This is a whiskey for drinking in front of a log fire when it's snowing outside. It's exactly what you want. It's not complex. It's not got bags of flavour that are going up and down and dancing in and out and everything like that. It's just classic whiskey richness and warmth and depth. And it's great. I love it. I think it's really, really nice. That is one of those where if somebody says, what does whiskey taste like? Which is an impossible question to answer because whiskey is so broad and there are so many different flavours, as I have found out over the last 203 whiskies and still have 100 odd to go. But if you had to, gun to head, had to pick one, particularly Scotch, if somebody said, what does Scotch whiskey taste like? That. As a massive, massive generalisation, that. Royal Lochnagar is one of those 5 that you would pick out in terms of what does Scotch taste like? What does Scotch as a concentrate it all down into one? You've got to pick one out of all these different whiskies that are out there. And, right, yes, they've got peated whiskies. Yes, you've got light one. Yes, you've got heritedly sherried. That Royal Lochnagar 12-year-old is the concentrate. It's the ethos almost of Scotch whiskey. It's almost where every other whiskey starts from this and goes in completely different directions, but at its core, like the centre of the whiskey universe, is something like that. Great whiskey, love it. 35 quid, great price. Really, really good. Fantastic present for somebody that drinks whiskey if they've not had that. You will not go wrong with that at all. Great stuff. Right. 1 down, 2 to go. So I'm going to do a quick rinse out and I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.